Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another 1/6 scale third-party unboxing and review. Now today we're going to be taking a look at none other than the Soul Ghost himself from an entirely new company called Minifigure. Now I personally had never even heard of Minifigure until of course they solicited this release right here. Now what this is it's basically a third-party, unlicensed, they don't hold the intellectual property rights to call this character what he's supposed to be. It's of course Red Skull, based off his appearance in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame as well. Now as I said, Minifigure don't hold the intellectual property rights to this figure. Now this is just an unboxing and review, it's not a promotional video or an ad or anything like that, so if you do want to purchase your own, do so knowing full well that it is an unlicensed figure. Now I personally purchased mine from toyswonderland.com and the link for that is in the description below, just to let you know where I personally got mine from. Not saying you absolutely have to go out and get it. If you'd like to find out more info, link is down there. As I said, this is purely going to be an unboxing and review video. Now while you're down in the description, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon so you don't miss out on any future third party or of course Hot Toys content as well. Either way, what we're going to do now is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. And here we have the box art for Soul Ghost himself. As you can see, it's pretty basic, just a picture of the figure on the front, accompanied by, of course, a minifigure logo and the title on the top. Same thing for the sides. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people have been receiving these recently and haven't been very impressed, so I don't know really what to expect with this release, but we'll have to wait and see. Of course, he is wearing a lot of cloth good robes, as you can see right here, so this is going to mean a lot of futzing to get this thing to look just right, but I'm prepared to put in the work to get this thing looking as good as possible. Either way, you can see a couple of hands and of course a tesseract, as well as a tiny little soul stone in there as well, but don't worry, we'll get a much closer look at these in just a second. And as you can see, he does come with his staff, which is pretty heavy. I don't know if there's a weight in the top there, but it is remarkably heavy. Very interesting on that piece right there. And then of course we have the figure himself. Yep, there are all those robes. They're absolutely going everywhere. Here is his hood, but we'll get this all situated before we take a closer look at the figure. But as you can see, the head sculpt looks pretty darn good just off the bat there, and the rest of the outfit really does need a lot of futzing. But anyway, as I said, we will get to that. Then the final piece in there is of course his display base. Either way, what we're going to do now is get all of the accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. And here we have all of the accessories that come with the Soul Ghost figure. Now as you can see, the first thing that we're going to take a look at is of course the display base, just a black generic regular crotch grabbing display base. I'm actually curious to see if we can use this to make it look like he's hovering because the robes are so long. We'll have to wait and see, but that's my ideal display method for having him in my Avengers Infinity War / of course Endgame display, but we'll have to wait and see. Stay tuned for an upcoming collection tour to see that. Now let's take a look at his cane. As you can see, it looks pretty good. It's painted in this wood-like finish. It is very heavy, especially at the end. I don't know if there's a weight in there or something like that. It looks alright, a little bit cartoony, but it definitely fits the bill for this figure. Now, he does also come with two alternate hands, both painted red. You can see there's a nice amount of detail and texture in there. These are, of course, just generic 1/6 scale hands that have been painted in red. Now, he does come with two of the Infinity Stones. This one, of course, is the Tesseract. The interesting thing to note is this, I think, has been 3D printed. As you can see, there are layer lines on there, which is very interesting, but this is a really nice piece to add into your collection if you don't already have a 1/6 scale Tesseract. Now, he does also come with this piece right here. It is absolutely microscopic, but it is the Soul Stone. Of course, this figure wouldn't be complete without the Soul Stone. I really do appreciate having this. This will make for a really nice display if you have this Soul Ghost figure posed alongside Thanos and, of course, Gamora as well. So I really do appreciate that they did give us this piece. Either way, what we're going to do now is get the figure himself out here and take a closer look. And here we have the Soul Ghost figure himself standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy posing or accessories or anything like that. And I have to say, once you put in the pre-required requisite futzing to get him to look just right, I think he comes across pretty darn good. Now you'll have to let me know what you think down in the comments section below. I know there are going to be a lot of people who aren't willing to put in the time and effort it takes to get it to look just right. But trust me, when you do, it definitely is worth it. When you get the hood laying just right, there's wires throughout the front of it. When you get the sleeves just right, there's wires in there as well. It looks really good. It really does come to life. I can hear his voice in my head right now, like straight out of the movie, and that is the key thing when you're purchasing these 1/6 scale figures. You want them to come to life, and I think this does as well. Now, I am using the display base underneath the robes, and the good thing is, once you put it there, you can't see it because the robes are so long, they billow out. It kind of looks like he's floating there, and I really do like that. That's one key thing that I did have for this figure, was for it to look like it did in the movie, sort of floating there, all ominous like, and this I think is going to look pretty darn good on the shelf. And here we have Soul Ghost up close and personal, and as you can see, I've got the hood, I think, laying quite nicely. You do have to tie the string around the front and then tuck it in, but when you do have it looking like this, I think it looks pretty darn good. Fresh out of the box, I'm not gonna lie, he looks a bit rough, but this actually comes across quite nicely. Now, when you do remove the hood, you can see a pretty darn good likeness to, of course, Red Skull from the movie. Don't forget, again, this is a 1/6 scale unlicensed figure, so this isn't technically supposed to be Red Skull, this is more Soul Ghost, but it still works perfectly fine for your display. It's painted and sculpted quite nicely as well. Do I think the Hot Toys Red Skull head sculpt is better? Absolutely, without a doubt, but this is still a really nice third-party representation just to get this character on your shelf, because I know a lot of people did want him in this format, and hell, if you wanted to, you could even use the Hot Toys head sculpt on this Red Skull figure if that was something that you'd like to do. If you have that figure laying around, maybe you have the Hugo Weaving head sculpt on your Hot Toys one and you want to use the Red Skull one for this, you could absolutely do that. Now, you can see the red neck under there as well, which is matched nicely to the head. There's a little bit of a color difference, it's a little bit lighter, but when you have the hood on, I think it hides it really nicely. There is a wire throughout the entire length of the hood, so you can shape it however you'd like, but it will require futzing. When you get a figure like this, full of cloth goods and robes and all that sort of stuff, you will have to futz around with it to get it to look just right. But if you're willing to put the time in, you can get it looking pretty darn decent. Panning the camera down to give you a closer look at the rest of the outfit, it looks a little bit like a mess. I mean, it is obviously accurate to the movie, having all this sort of draping cloth, but in figure format, especially at this viewing distance, it looks a little bit funny. But as you can see, it's all tattered and worn very nicely. The one thing that I do want to make note of is the fact that it's a little bit stiff and starchy. If you were to wash this, I think with a bit of fabric softener, it might loosen this up a little bit and get it to drape more nicely. But as it stands fresh out of the box from the factory, it is a little bit stiff and starchy. As I said, makes it a little bit tricky to pose the figure up. But either way, underneath the robes, he just does have regular 1/6 scale red painted feet, and of course, as you can see, the body has been painted red a little bit as well on the lower shin area, but for the rest of the leg, it is just a generic 1/6 scale body. You can't really expect them to go all out and give you a full red body for this release, unlike something like what we would get with Hot Toys, but this personally, for me, works perfectly fine. Bear in mind, again, this is a 1/6 scale unlicensed figure. They don't hold the IP rights, they don't have to adhere to the sort of Marvel and Disney licensing requirements that would have had a little bit more of a higher standard, especially when it comes to stuff like this. This, for me personally, for a background display piece, works perfectly fine. Now, for a quick side-by-side comparison to the official Hot Toys Red Skull, as you can see, there is a significant size difference between the two. The Soul Ghost figure on the right is quite a lot taller, but in my opinion, that does work because he is supposed to be hovering and floating in the background, so that can actually work quite well, although I'm sure a lot of people aren't going to like that. I know he's the same character, he's supposed to be the same height, and it appears like I'm making a bunch of excuses for this figure, but I'm just trying to help people realize how this thing can fit into your collection. You don't always have to be tied down to making sure he's the exact same height as the previous Red Skull. You can definitely make this work if that's something you'd like to do. But either way, as you can see, definitely a lot taller. Now, in terms of the head sculpt, the Hot Toys one is leagues better. There's no two ways about it. It appears as though this one right here is a straight up recast of the Hot Toys head sculpt, except with a little bit more of an aged and weathered paint treatment rather than the more fresh sort of sunburnt red on the Hot Toys release. Now, I did say that you'll be able to swap the head sculpts, and you definitely can, although a lot of work is going to be required. You're going to have to remove the rubber torso overlay off the Soul Ghost figure because the neck is actually one piece with the Hot Toys Red Skull. It can be done, but it's going to require just a little bit more work. Just going over the articulation for the Soul Ghost figure. Now, I personally am going to be a little bit more careful with my copy of this figure. I don't want to damage the joints or anything like that. When you get yours in hand, I'm sure you can push them a little bit further than I'm willing to go. Now, I've already taken the liberty of removing the hood piece just so you can see how the neck can articulate. It also actually accentuates how long the neck is. Don't worry, when you have the hood on there, it hides it perfectly fine. Now, in terms of the articulation, starting off with the head itself, it is just on a regular 1/6 scale cap joint. So it is a double ball joint. You get a bunch of motion out of that. Now, there is a joint at the lower part of the neck, but because it's a rubber torso overlay piece, you're not going to get a hell of a lot of motion out of that. Now, in terms of the arms themselves, they are, as I said, pretty much unhindered. They go out to about there. They go pretty much all the way around. And of course, you do get a single joint at the elbow and a swivel at the bicep. Now, you do have a traditional 1/6 scale joint at the wrist, which of course reveals the regular skin-colored arm. Just keep those sleeves down and you won't have to see that. Now, in terms of the torso, as I said, there is a rubber overlay piece and it ends right about there. So you do get a crunch and a swivel and also a bit of pivot as well up here and then also at the lower part as well, which results in a pretty decent crunch. Now, in terms of the legs, they are again pretty much unhindered. They go forward to about there. You can of course get them to go out. They swivel at the upper thigh, a nice double bend at the knee, which looks a little bit ridiculous with all of these cloth good robes. And of course, you do have a regular 1/6 scale joint at the feet as well. Just be careful when you're moving it around. Looks like some of the red paint is starting to come away. Luckily, you won't really be showing off any of Red Skull's red tootsies anytime soon. Just wrapping up on the minifigure 1/6 scale Soul Ghost release. Now, this figure is a bit of a mixed bag for me. While I personally really do like it, I know a lot of people aren't going to. There's going to be a lot of futzing involved to get the robes to look right. Some people just won't be able to get it to look the way they want to because there's so much going on. There are so many layers to this figure. There's the outer robe, there's the hood that goes over the top, there's this draping cape piece. There is, as I said, so much going on and a lot of people aren't going to want to put in the time and energy to get this to look just right. But trust me, if you do, it is well worth it. Now, someone said recently that these third-party figures aren't really meant to be at the front of your display. They're more meant to be background characters. And for some releases like this one right here, I totally agree. He works perfectly as a background character, floating ominously in the background behind Thanos and Gamora. I think that is going to be a really, really awesome display, and how I personally choose to display this figure. And hey, when is it not nice to add another figure to your growing Avengers Endgame or Infinity War display? I know personally for me that is one of the highlights for me because those two displays are absolutely the centerpieces of my collection. Now, as I said at the start of the video, this is a third-party unlicensed figure. It's not a counterfeit or knockoff or anything like that. Just an artistic representation based off Red Skull in the movies, and I personally picked up mine from toyswonderland.com, and the link for that is in the description below if you'd like to head over and find out a little bit more about this figure and see where I purchased mine from. Also, while you're down there, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon so you're notified as soon as brand new Hot Toys or third-party content goes live on my channel. Also, check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the brand new awesome Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and see what, of course, is coming up next on the channel. Also, check out the link to Justin and Steph, our brand new second channel for behind-the-scenes content and a hell of a lot more good stuff. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.